Salutations, everybody.
Morning.
How we doing? So Joe here.
Kevin.
Today's episode, I guess, is a little different.
Yeah, we've gotten comments from people that said it's kind of a special episode,
Mhm.
and I'd forgotten about that until
We just queued it up.
I pulled it up and it said the West Wing special episode. I'm
Yeah.
like, what? Oh, yeah, we've been told that this kind of is out of the normal narrative. I'm not really sure why. But I mean, so was Isaac and Ishmael. Maybe it's on those lines where it's
Sure.
just like they take a break and do something else.
I'm assuming it's about the election,
Right.
or
And,
something.
I mean, possibly as we're rolling into that election cycle.
because
I'm not sure.
we're gearing up. Like we've got a handful of episodes left this season.
Yeah. And again, I don't know that the election is this season. I felt like
I don't think it is.
was, but we're awful close to the end for us to get into debates
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So,
I think 4. If I'm guessing, I think
Right.
4 is going to be that.
right, because we still haven't met Richie, who is the presumptive Republican nominee.
Which I'm very excited for, by the
Yeah,
way.
absolutely.
And you guys seem to be excited about it as well. So.
Yeah, we've been guessing that they're going to use. I don't want to say stunt casting, but definitely an actor of note in the role, and apparently that's the case from what people have said.
Good.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say to that is good. Also, do you know when Sorkin left The West Wing?
It was sometime around season 5, but
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I think he and Rob Lowe left relatively close together, but
Yeah.
I don't know if one had anything to do with the other one.
I wonder if he leaves right after Bartlett gets reelected.
Possible.
If that's the case, I mean, that'd be kind of a nice send off for Sorkin. And,
Sure.
And I can see them wanting to do a whole season
Right.
based off of his reelection, you know?
Right. And I don't know if Sorkin left why
Entirely.
he left. Well, right. Like, I don't know if he left because he was having differences with the producers or with NBC or whatever, or if this was NBC, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, blank for a second there. Or if he left because, I mean, I would think burnout would be a real thing with the level of work he was doing
Yes.
on the show.
Mhm.
You know, I couldn't fault him at all for being like, I got to step back. I mean, it's why Jon Stewart left the Daily Show, right?
Sure. And,
At some point, the grind just gets you.
and also, like, he probably wanted to write features. Like, he
Sure.
wanted to write more plays. You know?
Absolutely.
And you're stuck writing TV
Right.
7 days a week.
And this is an interesting place to do this kind of a special episode break because I feel like the last episode really set up the campaign because you got everyone kind of in war room mode, including John Hoynes, right?
It was a huge Hoynes episode.
It was a big Hoynes episode. They were debating about dropping him from the ticket.
Yep.
And they decided not to. The Bartlett's because I might die.
Yeah. Great freaking line, man.
It's a great
God.
line. There was more than one person that commented that it was a little cheesy to do the written down note thing with it instead of just
I
saying
love
it.
it.
I get it,
I
but
love it.
I am here for Sorkin's schmaltziness sometimes.
It's okay if you want to criticize Sorkin for being cheesy, that's fine. But at the same time, it's like look at every other writer's shtick. Like look at
Yeah.
Tarantino. Nobody talks like how people talk in Tarantino.
For sure,
movies, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
and I don't think it's a realism thing. I think it's like okay, it feels kind of like a similar like Spielberg criticism because I love Spielberg. Obviously, he's one of the greatest directors of all time,
Sure.
but he gives into sentimentality hard sometimes, right?
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah.
Sometimes too hard. Like Saving Private Ryan's a great movie, but that last scene back in modern time, it was like
wasn't I a good man?
Exactly. It was like, okay, he couldn't help it. he couldn't hold it at bay all the way through. And I feel like that's kind of that moment was like some people. I didn't mind it at all.
Right. Yeah. It depends on your preference.
Sure, of course. It's kind of like, well, how much cheese can you take with your art? And apparently, I can take a lot.
I only mind it when it's out of place, and I don't think
and that wasn't out of place. No.
Same with the show.
Right.
This isn't out of place. I do want to start writing notes down though and handing it to people. Like, what time are you coming over? Write it down. Slide it over. About 7.
Because I might be late. But yeah, so I'm kind of excited to jump into this one, but we do want to welcome some new Patreon subscribers over the weekend, guys. So Veronica, Barbara Bass, Radha Carla, Andrew Ayala, Sarah Oven Carrera, Manny Blackson, and Mr. Morcombe. Thanks so much, guys, and welcome. And I'm sorry that I destroyed some names there for sure. We're very, very glad you're here with us today.
We really are. And if you guys are watching us on YouTube for the first time, welcome to our channel.
Hello.
If you'd mind hitting the like button for us, leave us a comment down below, and please hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with the new content we've coming your way.
Yeah, if you'd like to see a full-length reaction to this and everything else we've watched or watching, including every other episode of The West Wing, please check out a link in the description below to our Patreon page. You'll have to sync and watch along on your own device or streaming service. And you're only going to see and hear us over there, but you'll get the whole show that way. We're also watching 30 Rock as a Patreon exclusive. Well, even the intro's different.
It is.
I always dreamed about electing a president and then maybe helping to change the world.
Victory is mine! Victory is mine!
So we're gonna get actual experts talking on the show.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Who will
Jimmy.
be sycophants, who
Jimmy
will
C.
defer to you under any circumstances to gain your favor.
First place, White House closets are a lot bigger than anybody knows. There was a phone in his closet. I had to go to the bathroom. So I picked up the phone, called his secretary and said, Marie, get me out of here.
We met last night. You were singing and dancing in a bathrobe.
Yes, sir.
Why were you in the closet?
The Oval Office is awesome. It's a pressure cooker,
Awesome.
really.
When did Gerald Ford die?
I think it was like 2005.
Was it?
Ish?
If you did an interview with
No.
everybody that worked in our administration, all of them
cool.
would tell you three things. I'll bet you anything. I enjoy having my life back. I'm making more money than I was.
Yeah.
And the third thing they'd say is, but I sure miss the work.
I've never felt like
We see GW on here.
I doubt it.
I really doubt it too. Yeah.
I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a period look back.
Yeah.
So obviously, these conversations be way different now.
We're still getting
Yes,
the intro though.
yes. The president said we could nuke hurricanes and inject disinfectant. He wasn't listening to us.
They should do it now. Like
right?
that-
Yeah. The Trump cabinet talking about Stockholm syndrome.
Cool.
That's a great shot, isn't it?
I remember very distinctly walking down the path from the northwest gate to
Yeah,
the
this
west
is who
wing,
CJ's based on apparently.
and
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
I'm actually, this is where I work. You were so overwhelmed with what you had to do that you immediately switched into let's get it done mode.
It's a nice
I
morning.
believe that, yeah.
We'll take care of that in a hurry.
First, you get a private parking place, and you go in through these big gates that open up. That
I'm glad that there are some guys who work for Republican administrations
Yeah, I was
too here,
wondering if
and
that
not
was-
just Clinton.
yeah.
Yeah.
stairs, and a Marine stands there and clicks his wheels. Then you go in your office, and there's Helen Thomas waiting for you, and you say, well, there are some problems with this job, but
It's like a good dude.
Yeah.
Said, to have an office in the West Wing, I would take half of a windowless closet. And that's pretty much what they gave me.
Yeah.
This steam
Like
trunk
Ainsley.
distribution venue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of garbage and air conditioning ducts outside my office. It was always dark. On the most beautiful day, it was dark.
Almost everybody walks into an Oval Office and gets cotton in their mouth. Their tongue gets tied.
Yeah.
I bet it's overwhelming.
I like how they keep cutting back to the show.
Yeah,
'cause It's
yeah.
like, all right, he's obviously pulling from a lot of real life experiences.
Yeah.
Very articulate people would come into the Oval Office to ask a favor, and when they got there, they couldn't speak and tell my staff member what they wanted, but they couldn't bring themselves to ask for a mundane request in the presence of the Oval Office.
The president is engaged in a marathon. His aides are engaged in a sprint, and they have to keep working in order to make the White House work.
On Capitol Hill, at least, you knew when you were out of session, you were
Oh,
out of
yes.
session.
Leon Panetta.
And when you had a break, you had a break.
Constant focus so that you're never off job. You're never not at the White House.
What?
Good morning, Mr. President. It's Charlie. I hope.
I mean, what could you possibly want right now?
Yeah.
Because I saw my friends with families just in agony.
This is the most important thing I'll ever do, Jenny.
It's about as
legacy
exciting
they
a place
carry,
to work
you know?
as,
Oh, yeah, for
as
sure.
there is on the earth.
We actually got you going out.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I had the privilege of going with President Reagan to a summit conference in Versailles, flew to London, and had dinner at Windsor Palace with the Queen. And
Yeah.
I thought, I can't, this is unbelievable.
And you get in line and you ride the Sizzler with Alan Greenspan and you think, this job is crazy.
You're brand new. You are lucky to be there. You see all these people from people you see on Meet the Press. You've been there for maybe a year. You've done some work. You've gotten to know people. Phase 3, you all of a sudden know everything, and you realize how frail we are, how imperfect we are, how half dumb or fully dumb we are.
You very quickly come to understand that
I hate that guy.
Carl Rove.
I hate Carl Rove so much.
Well, why not CGW?
There's a
This
lot of
guy.
there's a lot of evil things this guy did.
One of the
well,
only
the
times,
press
really.
corps
Yeah.
has to be stationed at the White House in the briefing room all day long, waiting for news to break out.
There's a lot of ways to screw up. There's a lot of different ways to do it.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Sometimes you say something, and as it's coming out of your mouth, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, no, that bad.
I believe that.
Obviously,
I
For
was going to
sure.
go out and tell the press corps on live television that we had started the invasion. And the president looked at me at first like I was crazy and then said, "You better wait till 1:30."
Why doesn't he understand that the Congress is doing the right thing? My perspective changed
He was right after
significantly.
Reagan, right?
No, he was in after Nixon retired.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He was a replacement.
Because Bush was after Reagan, right? Yeah. After
Beat
Carter,
him.
though, right?
Before Carter. Carter beat him.
Yeah,
Last night I had a dream,
my timeline's
and
messed up there.
Jesus talked to me. Jesus also said that I could support this plan if I got approval for a casino in my district.
You know, it's almost like there's a finite pool of power, and if somebody has a little piece of it, somebody else is giving it up.
That the blood sport of Washington, which is destroying people as part of a process. Politicians destroy people to get ahead sometimes. Some would admit that.
Mario Cuomo once said that we campaign in poetry but govern in prose. Sometimes you look back and think, maybe I shouldn't have been quite so hard-headed and compromised a little more. The day I walked out of the White House, I was more idealistic than the day I walked in.
You know why? Because I'm a
Little
little
Lebowski, I'm a Lebowski.
egghead communist.
Strong men cry.
Yes, sir.
A modern president who is a natural will almost breathe in the presidency.
Boy, did we have a guy that was definitely not presidential.
He better be well-meaning. He better have his act together.
Oh my God, this is like a warning, isn't it?
This makes me hurt.
Yeah.
This makes me hurt so bad.
Right.
It's almost as if somebody whispers in their ear, you know, there's room up on Mount Rushmore for one
Not
more
anymore.
face.
American voters like guts, and Republicans have got them.
Bridge Farm, though.
One of the things that you have to have when you're chief of staff to the President of the United States is a relationship of trust.
To tell truth to power in a mature White House.
I got Kissinger around here.
He just died.
Yeah.
It's very contrary.
My
to
man loved his napalm.
He did.
The
That's funny.
president needs to be both revered and feared. He can't just be one of the boys.
Tell W that.
Yeah, right.
The president has to make some tough decisions, and there is no appeal.
You can debate
Adventurous
about whether or not he was an effective
and
president, but he
gratifying
was a
life.
good guy.
Well
He is a good guy, yeah.
The issue of can you be reelected as President of the United States has to meet the substance of what you believe in.
But a president has to make those judgments, and he ought to do it on what's right.
He signed an executive order with regard to the military to desegregate the military. And he said, this is more important. I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And if I lose the election, I lose the election. A president who is trusted by the people, by the Congress, is a president who can get a lot of good things done.
At 10 o'clock at night, I drove them downtown and parked in front of the White House. The most powerful person on the planet left this place on his own because of the rule of law.
And then we had to have the National Guard come in
You know
and from the Capitol.
We'll give that one to Nixon. We'll give you that one, Nixon.
Absolutely.
What do you say about a government that goes out of its
God,
way to protect
that
even
enrages me
citizens
so
that try to
much that
destroy
even Nixon can be like, all right, I get it. It's like, I'm gonna head out.
Every president has sat in there and tried their best and sweated blood. And to know that you're one small link in that chain.
I don't know why it's making me emotional, but it kind of is.
I think, regardless of party, from administration to administration, people go there with high hopes and they work their hearts out.
Now we see the dark side of that.
Right.
They're human beings that are capable
I think that's
of
why this episode
pretty
works
gross
so
stuff.
well now.
Yeah.
Man.
That really flew by. That was fantastic. This is one that I think that we've talked about, like showing the West Wing in schools before, and like just
Right.
having like a government class kind of like watch an episode or two. This is one that you could easily throw on for some kids and really
Right.
like teach them about
Even
government
if they don't understand the show or the characters
and what
or
the
whatever,
office should
right,
be.
yeah. I think that's why this episode works so well. Is you look at it from when this was made. This is a 20-year-old episode of television, right? And then you look at the last decade or whatever, and it's like, man, have we wandered off willingly? We all did it ourselves. Wandered off the path of this a little bit.
How do you? When? Why? How? It's like, do you think that I don't want to be like an old man when I say this, or like naive.
Yeah, be an old man. Who cares?
Do you think it is because of social media and influence from what other people say and just like misinformation in general? Like,
I don't know. I hear misinformation for sure.
Yeah.
I think we saw after the 2016 election
because
that was 100%
it was
a problem.
It was just like falling off of a cliff. It's like you're driving, all of a sudden the end of the cliff just kind of happened. Right. It was so quick.
Yeah, I think that people around the world should study the 2016 presidential election in the United States extensively to kind of see where we really went off the rails as a people for a lot of reasons, including social media and what we let that do. And I know people aren't.
And that's just my take. I'm not,
right. That's what I'm saying.
Obviously, it could be more than that.
Sure, of course. And there's a billion factors.
Yeah.
But I don't think people are watching this to hear our political ideas, but to our analysis of the show.
Which you've heard before.
Right. But I do think that this episode in particular is one that it works so well now, because you look at how far we've come since then, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
And I think there are a multitude of factors, and one of them absolutely is social media. And I think there's the reality that there were things during the Bush years that were so egregious to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
The gay bashing, the homophobia,
Islamophobia.
The Islamophobia, 9/11, there were a lot of things that like really shift the dynamics.
Sure.
To where something happened after that, which no one imagined happening. A black man got elected president, right? Yeah. That was a reaction to the horror show that was the Bush administration, right?
Yeah.
And conversely, we get to 2016, and we've had a black man as president for
2 terms.
For 2 terms, right? We have 8 years of a black man as president, and the natural reaction to people who hated that was, let's elect the opposite. And I'm sorry, I know people will disagree with me, but a racially hostile white nationalist whose only qualifications were, you've seen me on TV, right?
I'm a businessman,
right? I'm sorry, but you can't watch this and not think about Trump, right? Because his president, right? His presidency was pops in your head with so many of the comments that were made there about what a presidency is. And it's like, well, it's been up to that point, sure, but. The reality is you elect a guy. First off, Donald Trump was the first president America ever had in 45 presidents who wasn't either in public service before or in the military before.
Yeah.
He was the first guy that had never done a public service job of any kind. He just was a businessman and said, I want to do this thing. And people said, sure, why not? And did it and let it happen. And we couldn't believe that it happened. I don't even think the people that voted for him could believe it happened.
I couldn't. I didn't vote for him, but I couldn't believe it happened when it did. I went to bed that night and was like, I guess we'll wake up in the morning and we'll see what happens.
I think everyone was like, what?
There was an instant vibe. Like I was in college. I had class the next day, and I remember walking on campus, and it was just kind of quiet. Right. Everyone was just like, what? Like it was bewildering.
And there was such a shift in what people thought they could do in the country at the time. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't long after this that Nazi march in Charlottesville with the Tiki Torch guys.
That was 2016?
2017.
2017, right.
But it was right after the change of office. It was pretty close of those guys chanting "Jews will not replace us," and it's being normal. All of a sudden, Nazis were back in vogue.
I still remember that picture of the tiki.
The guys with the torches,
burned into my head. 100%. I'll never forget that. Like I will never forget that as long as I live.
Yeah.
Because of how shocking and how horrible it really was.
And for sure. And I know we're off topic of the episode, guys, but again,
I think it's in relation though.
I don't think you can watch this episode and not have those thoughts, like the reverence with which the job was treated, right?
Yeah.
And now you have guys like Steve Bannon, who was just a Breitbart muckraker, right?
Yeah.
Like, just a guy who, an openly racist muckraker.
Okay.
You had Steve Miller in a presidential advisory job, who is unapologetically a racist.
Yeah.
In an important position in the White House. And I know people are watching this saying, who are fans of Trump's, that's okay, who are saying those guys aren't racist. They didn't come out and say, I hate black people, but the dog whistling was pretty obvious.
This isn't even like a Republican thing.
No, it's not. It's not. There are good Republicans who are just as shocked as I am about what that was.
My grandparents, they're so conservative. They were like, nope.
That's not,
like, nope.
What happened then wasn't conservative. What happened was a different, ugly nationalist thing.
Yeah.
That really showed the ugliest side of a particular group of people.
Yeah.
And it's still there. And I mean, if you don't believe it, get on Twitter any day.
Any day.
And
it's exhausting.
And look for the people that call themselves ultra MAGA or whatever, or the QAnon people. Find them and you'll see what they're saying.
And it's all response. Like I was bartending I think at the beginning of the second election, 2020, and there was a guy that came in wearing a MAGA hat, which is fine,
Whatever, right.
but he was wearing it, and like I don't know if I gave him a look or whatever. But, like I was just tending bar, and he like was pushing me. He was like, "What do you think of my hat?" I'm like, "I think it's a hat." And he's like, "You want to wear it?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "It's your hat. You have the right to wear whatever you want. I don't want it."
Right.
He's like, "I'll buy you one." I'm like, "No, it's
God.
fine."
Yeah.
He kept pushing me. I'm like, "It's totally fine. I don't agree with it, but that doesn't give me the right to say anything, sir. You can."
This is America, right? Wear your hat.
And it's I hate that. I hate that we've come so far from this amazing episode where you see Henry Kissinger,
Right.
who, look, I had a strong response to that, but still, you see Kissinger, you see Jimmy Carter, you see everybody in this episode.
There was people of all political spectrums, but again, this was back when we were a little more reasonable than we are now.
Truly, and it's like, how do we get from that idealism to today, where it's all reactionary? It's all I hate you. It's all we're not on the same side.
Well,
it's very divided.
I do agree with you that social media is a large part of that. They just kind of all coincided, right?
People want to cause events so people can pull their phones out and record it, and argue for years.
Right.
And years.
Well, I mean, we have people in Congress. If you look at somebody like a Lauren Boebert, or much worse, a Marjorie Taylor Greene, right, who aren't actually in Congress to govern. They're in Congress because they are Twitter trolls and upsetting the other side.
Overthrow Roe v. Wade.
Right. I mean, it's just about, can I make the people who disagree with me angry? I don't like them, so I don't want someone who's actually a leader. I want someone who's good enough to get up and make them mad and make them respond. We are a country where a significant part of the population votes on who's the better Twitter troll. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Who gets people up in arms and upset by saying the inflammatory things that I want to hear?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I agree with them policy-wise. Not that I think any of it's realistic. But Marjorie Taylor Greene gets into Congress. She got famous because David Hogg, you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the kids from the Parkville shooting in Florida, who went to Congress to press for tougher gun laws.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to disagree with somebody like that, right?
Sure.
It's okay to agree. Politically, I get guns are complex, whatever.
Yeah. We get it. We
right,
raise around
for sure.
Yeah.
But she made a name for herself by following him around and just harassing him. She followed him around and yelled and recorded herself yelling at him in the streets. And this is when he was a high school kid.
He's a survivor.
Right.
He experienced a traumatic event that none of us will experience. Hopefully, pray to God that none of us experience that. But like, he's a survivor.
Whether you like him or not, I don't care. But he did have friends who died in a mass shooting when he was a kid at school with them, and he was still a kid when this happened.
A child, really a child.
And the response was not, "Oh my God, don't do this. This is a horrible thing to do to somebody." It's let's put you in Congress because you know how to own the libs, and that's where we are now. And you're right. I don't know if we would have gotten there anyway, and if social media just spurned us a little faster to this polarization we're at. But holy crap, did things like Twitter not really help, right?
And if there's any silver lining from this, guys, it's like, if you guys can, not our episode, well, if you want to share our episode, please do. But if you can share this episode of The West Wing with people that aren't aware and people that like are yearning for something more, share this episode because I feel like it is nostalgic.
Sure.
And I feel like it's a good example of how to, we need to get back on track somehow. And, and the thing is, we control that. We vote. We vote.
It's the people, right?
And so we can fix this if we can come together in some way.
And by the way, this isn't a liberal versus conservative thing.
Not at all, guys. Not at all.
There have been very, very good people and very, very awful people in politics on every inch of the political spectrum. So whatever your policy beliefs are your policy beliefs, and as long as you have a good reason, they're fine.
Absolutely. Like, I respect your opinion.
Oh, right.
Unless you're a racist.
That's not a good reason, right? That's what I'm saying. As long as you have a good reason for your policy beliefs, that's great. When you have bad reasons, you own those. But God, the idea that it has to be politics has to be a hate-based, my side versus your side, and I don't care if things go well for me or anyone or the country at all. Just as long as you're unhappy, that's something that needs to go away.
Can't we just move forward?
Right. Anyway, we have pontificated long enough about this. It really was a great episode. It was very well done. It was good hearing those voices. And my reaction to the episode is very clear. Is my God, those are some wonderful bygone days where people of differing political beliefs could come together to just try to run a country, and we would love for that to happen again.
We would.
All right, we'll talk to you later, guys.